Chapter 14 of The Danger Trail. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Roger Moline. The Danger Trail by James Oliver Curwood. Chapter 14. The Gleam of the Light. In a single breath, the face of Jean Croisset became no more than a mask of what it had been. The taunting smile left his lips, and a gray pallor spread over his face as he saw Howland's finger crooked firmly on the trigger of his revolver. In another instant there came the sound of a metallic snap. "Damnation! An empty cartridge!" Howland exclaimed. "I forgot to load after those 3 shots at the cup. It's coming this time, Jean." Purposely he snapped the second empty cartridge. "The great God!" gasped Jean. "Monsieur!" From deep in the forest came again the baying of the Mackenzie hound. This time it was much nearer, and for a moment Howland's eyes left the Frenchman's terrified face as he turned his head to listen. "They are coming!" exclaimed Croisset. "Monsieur, I swear to—" Again Howland's pistol covered his heart. "Then it is even more necessary that I kill you," he said with frightful calmness. "I warned you that I would kill you if you led me into a trap, Croisset. The dogs are bushed. There is no way out of this but to fight, if there are people coming down the trail. Listen to that!" This time, from still nearer, came the shout of a man, and then of another, followed by the huskies' sharp yelping as they started afresh on the trail. The flush of excitement that had come into Howland's face paled until he stood as white as the Frenchman. But it was not the whiteness of fear. His eyes were like blue steel flashing in the sunlight. "There is nothing to do but fight," he repeated, even more calmly than before. "If we were a mile or two back there it could all happen as I planned it. But here—" "They will hear the shots!" cried Jean. "The post is no more than a gunshot beyond the forest, and there are plenty there who would come out to see what it means. Quick, monsieur, follow me. Possibly they are hunters going out to the trap lines. If it comes to the worst—" "What then?" demanded Howland. "You can shoot me a little later," temporized the Frenchman, with a show of his old coolness. "Mon Dieu, I am afraid of that gun, monsieur. I will get you out of this if I can. Will you give me the chance, or will you shoot?" "I will shoot if you fail," replied the engineer. Barely were the words out of his mouth when Croisset sprang to the head of the dogs, seized the leader by his neck trace, and half dragged the team and sledge through the thick bush that edged the trail. A dozen paces farther on the dense scrub opened into the clearer run of the low-hanging banskian through which Jean started at a slow trot, with Howland a yard behind him, and the huskies following with human-like cleverness in the sinuous twistings of the trail which the Frenchman marked out for them. They had progressed not more than 300 yards when there came to them for a third time the hallooing of a voice. With a sharp "Hup, hup!" and a low crack of his whip, Jean stopped the dogs. "The Virgin be praised, but that is luck!" he exclaimed. "They have turned off into another trail to the east, monsieur. If they had come on to that break in the bush where we dragged the sledge through—" He shrugged his shoulders with a gasp of relief. "Sacre, they would not be fools enough to pass it without wondering." Howland had broken the breech of his revolver and was replacing the 3 empty cartridges with fresh ones. "There will be no mistake next time," he said, holding out the weapon. "You were as near your death a few moments ago as ever before in your life, Croisset. And now for a little plain understanding between us. Until we stopped out there I had some faith in you. Now I have none. I regard you as my worst enemy, and though you are deuced near to your friends, I tell you that you were never in a tighter box in your life. If I fail in my mission here, you shall die. If others come along that trail before dark and run us down, I will kill you. Unless you make it possible for me to see and talk with Mélisse, I will kill you. Your life hangs on my success. With my failure, your death is as certain as the coming of night. I am going to put a bullet through you at the slightest suspicion of treachery. Under the circumstances, what do you propose to do?" "I am glad that you changed your mind, monsieur, and I will not tempt you again. I will do the best that I can," said Jean. Through a narrow break in the tops of the banskian pines a few feathery flakes of snow were falling, and Jean lifted his eyes to the slit of gray sky above them. "Within an hour it will be snowing heavily," he affirmed. "If they do not run across our trail by that time, monsieur, we shall be safe." He led the way through the forest again, more slowly and with greater caution than before, and whenever he looked over his shoulder he caught the dull gleam of Howland's revolver as it pointed at the hollow of his back. "The devil, but you make me uncomfortable," he protested. "The hammer is up too, monsieur." "Yes, it is up," said Howland grimly. "And it never leaves your back, Croisset. If the gun should go off accidentally it would bore a hole clean through you." Half an hour later the Frenchman halted where the banskians climbed the side of a sloping ridge. "If you could trust me, I would ask to go on ahead," whispered Jean. "This ridge shuts in the plain, monsieur, and just over the top of it is an old cabin which has been abandoned for many years. There is not one chance in 1,000 of there being any one there, though it is a good fox ridge at this season. From it you may see the light in Mélisse's window at night." He did not stop to watch the effect of his last words, but began picking his way up the ridge, with the dogs tugging at his heels. At the top he swung sharply between two huge masses of snow-covered rock, and in the lee of the largest of these, almost entirely sheltered from the drifts piled up by easterly winds, they came suddenly on a small log hut. About it there were no signs of life. With unusual eagerness Jean scanned the surface of the snow, and when he saw that there was trail of neither man nor beast in the unbroken crust a look of relief came into his face. "Mon Dieu, so far I have saved my hide," he grinned. "Now, monsieur, look for yourself and see if Jean Croisset has not kept his word." A dozen steps had taken him through a screen of shrub to the opposite slope of the ridge. With outstretched arm he pointed down into the plain, and as Howland's eyes followed its direction he stood throbbing with sudden excitement. Less than a quarter of a mile away, sheltered in a dip of the plain, were 3 or 4 log buildings rising black and desolate out of the white waste. One of these buildings was a large structure, similar to that in which Howland had been imprisoned, and as he looked a team and sledge appeared from behind one of the cabins and halted close to the wall of the large building. The driver was plainly visible, and to Howland's astonishment he suddenly began to ascend the side of this wall. For the moment Howland had not thought of a stair. Jean's attitude drew his eyes. The Frenchman had thrust himself half out of the screening bushes and was staring through the telescope of his hands. With an exclamation he turned quickly to the engineer. "Look, monsieur! Do you see that man climbing the stair? I don't mind telling you that he is the one who hit you over the head on the trail, and also one of those who shut you up in the coyote. Those are his quarters at the post, and possibly he is going up to see Mélisse. If you were much of a shot You could settle a score or two from here, M'sieur."